A few months ago, I surprisingly saw two photos. Both were about the traditional Asian firearms, but one of the photos was from a museum in Zhenjiang, and another photo was from Shanghai. So I didn't have the chance and the time to go to both cities until last month. I finally could visit both cities, so can I find what I want to see? Let's just start today's video. The first city that I went to was Zhenjiang. Zhenjiang is not a very big and famous city in the world nowadays, but what if we return back to 100 years ago? Compared with Shanghai, Zhenjiang was not as bustling as Shanghai, but Zhenjiang was still also one of the most important cities in China in the 1920s. And Zhenjiang once was even the capital of Jiangsu province in 1929. Besides the close history, Zhenjiang still has many very old stories, such as the city was a strategic point along the Yangtze River and an important station of the Grand Canal in the Ming Dynasty and the Qing Dynasty, etc. So Zhenjiang is such a city that has a rich history and culture, but today's video is not a city travel vlog. Our important point is focused on the museum. So if you are interested in this city, I will talk more about it in the future. This time, what we will see the museum in today's video is Zhenjiang Museum. The building of this museum is located in an old town area. In more details, this town area was also the old British concession in Zhenjiang, which was very near to the Yangtze River. After stepping out of the bus, I just stood on the street of this old British concession and could see the views of old town style. Additionally, when I walked along the street, I suddenly saw an old traditional Chinese house, but it seems there are no people living here, and the house fell into disrepair. Therefore, the building showed off its wooden beams. Continuing walking, there are more and more old buildings. Most of them are European style. Today, there wasn't a British concession for a very long time, so the old buildings also are changing in functions. There are some buildings that have become a park, and there are some buildings that have become historical memories or the area of showing the culture and creative business products. Because the old building got a new function in the modern time. In other words, the old buildings got their new positions in this new society. Therefore, they are able to survive in the 21st century. Not only are there European-style houses, but also there are traditional Chinese buildings. But because of the time, I didn't visit the buildings except the Zhenjiang Museum. Most of the buildings belonged to some famous people more than 100 years ago. Nowadays, things are changed. The buildings have become many small museums. Not walking very far, I finally arrived at the main building of the Zhenjiang Museum. This building has a typical old European building style. Very surprisingly, visiting this museum is totally free, but the visitor must use an ID card or passport to enter the gate, and also every visitor must go through security, although there are many steps in order to enter it. It didn't take too much time. The first gallery is the bronze ware gallery. Besides the bronze live wares, music instruments, and religious wares, there are many bronze weapons. Generally, they are thousands of years old, built in the spring and autumn period, lasting approximately from 770 to 481 BCE. In this period, created many different types of cold weapons. Maybe we can talk about the cold weapons of the Chinese spring and autumn period in my sword and arrow series, because I still need to read more information in order to make more clearly understand these ancient weapons. Speaking of which, I want to add a detail about the swords that I remember. There are some swords that look like they are not very long. It should be because it was very difficult to possess an old bronze sword in technique in the far ancient time. Then, the next gallery was pottery and porcelain. When I visited the galleries, I gradually found that English explanation was limited. except for the titles of most of the collections, and some very important collections. Maybe half of the information didn't have English translations, but at the same time, I also noticed that even though we can read them and understand the explanation that the museum gave us, that may be far from enough. For example, for me, I have more knowledge about the classical weapons, such as bows and muzzleloaders. So if I saw an old weapon collection, I would understand it more. However, if I visit an ancient pottery and chinaware, honestly, the art collections may not be able to touch my heart, even though I know that these are extremely historical, rare, and beautiful collections, and have very high value to learn about the ancient time. I can't understand the soul of the pottery and the porcelain art. After visiting the bronze gallery and the pottery and porcelain gallery, the whole first floor of the museum had finished visiting. So now I entered the lobby. There was a very big and long relief, which was about the history of the 19th century of Zhenjiang. When I went to the second floor from the stairs, I could look down, and the relief could be showing clearer than before seeing it on the first floor. The first gallery of the second floor that I visited was about goldware and silverware. The collections are still very gorgeous. According to my watch, there are 3 parts of the ware. One part is jewelry. The second part is about livewares, such as chopsticks, plates, etc. Because there are many livewares here, the museum also gives us some history stories about the drinking culture when the ancient people, particularly the people in the Tang Dynasty, were having dinner. The third part is about ancient money, such as coins and many different types of silver ingot. The next gallery of the second floor is about handicraft. I found that most of the collections simply were donated from some private collectors, and some collections were from the Song Dynasty. They were about 1,000 years old. I think the most surprising collection should be the double xi. If we see it from a far spot, we would see it and might think it's only a normal double xi, just like the others that are used in the traditional Chinese wedding. But if we walk closer to it, we will see that there is a painting hidden in this special Chinese character. The last gallery also is my favorite gallery, because most of the collections were about the special and unique cold weapons and the Chinese imperial examination. In Chinese, it's 科举. 科举 had 2 categories, 文科举 and 武科举. 文科举 was similar with the civil service exam of nowadays. Even it says that the modern civil service examination was from 文科举 since 1855. If the students could be success in the examination of 文科举, the students would have the chance to be a mandarin of the country, or even maybe could be the highest mandarin whose social rank only was lower than the noble class and the emperor in many Chinese dynasties for more than 1,000 years. In the museum, we can see there are the real existing examination papers. Honestly, their brush pen handwriting was so clear. In addition, I noticed that there are manuscripts on the seal, but because not only the Chinese character but also the manuscript, both are the seal scripts, also known as 篆体, so I'm not able to understand them, and the script in the middle is too small, so I also can't see it clearly. And then the other collections are about 武科举. That was the military version of 文科举. Typically, the exams of 武科举 were about traditional military skills like physical strength, archery, mounted archery, etc. It is worth mentioning that the explanation that is put on the wall behind the collections is from a French book, which was published in 1896. Besides the collections about 科举, there still are the sign of the raking of military boundaries, the sword, military documents, and a very fine and long iron smoking pipe. The other half of the gallery is the coolest part, because it is about the weapons, such as the traditional triple barrel hand cannon and many different cold weapons. Among the cold weapons, besides the familiar weapons like nunchucks, throwing knives, and darts, there are many rare weapons and special weapons that are disguised as instrument, fans, or other live wear. When I finished the visiting, I walked out of the museum and walked around in this historical area. After going through this area, I found I had arrived at the bank of the Yangtze River. To be honest, the view is really good, and the wind is comfortable as well. Very surprisingly, I saw that there is a huge hotel on the river, and it had a ship looking. So this is my museum trip of this time. Now, in the next part of this video, let's talk about my disappointment. If you ask me why did I decided to go to this museum, actually it was simple, because when I visited its official website one day, I found that I could see the collections online. When I saw the photos of the inside of the museum and the collections one by one, very unexpectedly, I saw a real Tibetan-style matchlock here, because this was a folk art exhibition from Qinghai province, which is also one part of the Tibetan cultural regions. So I just wanted to go and see the real collections. All of these are very rare and precious collections that is very worth studying. But unfortunately, I just missed it while visiting this time, because after visiting, I finally found that visiting the Zhenjiang Museum online is not a real-time update, just like this art exhibition of Qinghai. It was an exhibition from September 19th to November 29th, and I even didn't find which year this exhibition opened. Maybe this was an old exhibition, or there was the year on the exhibition post, but I just missed it. Anyway, this time I went there. I didn't see this exhibition, so I also didn't meet this Tibetan-style matchlock. I think this should be my disappointment on this trip. However, I think the photos online are clear enough, although the photos are not better than seeing the collections with our eyes. But I think I still can make a video to talk about this classical matchlock in the future. So this is today's video, and thank you for watching. Hope you can like this video. Have a good day. See you next time.